The Mojave begins in silence. Long before gunfire or politics, before NCR banners or Caesar's standards, there was only wind rolling over empty sand. That wind still carries the faint echo of pre war songs, stretched thin through heat and time. Fallout, New Vegas, was built around that silence, a desert that feels both alive and asleep. It isn't the end of the world, it's what comes after everyone has stopped talking. When Obsidian began shaping the Mojave, they wanted every horizon to tell a story. The hills and broken highways were arranged so that light would travel differently through dust at each hour. Morning in the desert looks gentle, pale gold washing over cracked asphalt, while sunset turns everything red, as if the earth remembers fire. The art team used color to show emotion: yellow for survival, orange for memory, and deep blue for hope. The very first area, Good Springs, was designed as a kind of heartbeat. Its simple buildings, its quiet graves, and the way the sun sets behind the hills all exist to calm the player before the chaos of choice begins. You start among people who speak softly and heal you, so that when you later face cruelty, you remember kindness as your baseline. The game teaches empathy before conflict. Even the opening cutscene, the image of a hand of cards, the barrel of a gun, the calm voice describing the end, was written to sound like a dream. The narrator doesn't shout. He tells you that war never changes with the tone of a man reciting a bedtime truth. The voice of New Vegas is not angry, it's weary. It knows that people never stop building new worlds on the ruins of old ones. The Mojave's world map was built with landmarks visible from nearly anywhere. The Lucky 38 Tower glows like a memory of civilization, and the strip's neon acts as a star for wanderers. The developers place these lights deliberately so that even in complete silence, the player always has something to move toward. Hope is geography disguised as architecture. Every faction in the Mojave was built to represent a philosophy of survival. The NCR seeks order through bureaucracy, Caesar's Legion through discipline, Mr. House through control, and Yes Man through freedom disguised as chaos. None are purely good, none purely evil. They're reflections of how humanity adapts when the world forgets fairness. The writers describe them as ideologies in dry air. The soundscape of New Vegas was recorded with restraint. Most of the desert is quiet, the hum of wind, the crack of distant gunfire, the occasional rustle of a creature moving through brush. This emptiness wasn't a lack of sound, but an intentional design choice. Obsidian's audio team said they wanted players to hear their own thoughts. The Mojave's quiet becomes a mirror for the mind. The tumbleweeds that roll across the wasteland are not random. They follow coded wind currents, mapped by direction and speed. If you wait long enough, you'll see the same weed pass by again hours later, caught in the same endless loop. The desert recycles everything, even motion. Each settlement was designed as a different kind of memory. Good Springs represents beginnings. Prim represents risk. Nipton represents cruelty. Novak represents endurance. And the Strip represents temptation. You can trace the entire journey of human morality simply by walking north. The path itself becomes storytelling. The world's color palette was chosen to look bleached by radiation and sun, yet soft enough to soothe the eyes. Designers avoided harsh contrast. They wanted players to feel that the Mojave had been drained of everything except resilience. Every rusted car, every billboard half buried in sand, serves as quiet evidence of time's patience. Even the radio stations tell a story. Mojave Music Radio plays songs filled with optimism and loneliness, while Black Mountain Radio broadcasts bitterness and longing. The contrast mirrors the desert itself, light and shadow, coexisting endlessly. When you travel alone, the static between tracks feels almost comforting, a reminder that the world still hums. The companions who walk beside you were written with subtle contradictions. The calm sniper, haunted by guilt, the scientist searching for lost history, the ghoul who jokes about decay because it hurts less than hope. Each voice was recorded with quiet emotion, no shouting, no melodrama, just weary humanity. Their lines often end in pauses instead of periods, leaving space for silence to finish their thoughts. The casinos along the strip shine with deliberate irony. Their neon promises pleasure, but the music inside plays slower than normal. The tempo drags slightly, just enough to make joy sound tired. It's artificial happiness, the kind that burns out the longer you chase it. The lights never turn off because they don't know how to rest. Mr. House's voice, calm and calculating, was recorded at a lower tone than other characters. The actor read his lines as though speaking through a dream, detached yet certain. The effect was to make technology sound ancient, a ghost of civilization preserved in wires and glass. The Hoover Dam was recreated with careful attention to sound. When you stand at its center, the wind howls louder than anywhere else in the game. That echo was recorded in real canyon locations. It carries a sense of loneliness that dwarfs even the strongest factions. The dam doesn't care who wins, it just endures. The Mojave's nighttime sky was one of the first to use dynamic lighting in the series. The stars fade in gradually over several minutes, following the sun's descent. The moon reflects faintly off desert sand, creating soft halos of silver around rocks. Even darkness in New Vegas isn't empty, it glows quietly, as if the world remembers how to hope. Obsidian's writers said they wanted New Vegas to feel morally exhausting. Every choice helps someone while hurting another. There is no pure victory, only perspective. Yet amid all the decay, humor persists, a robot humming jazz, a merchant complaining about heat, a traveler reciting poetry to dust. Life in the Mojave survives through small laughter. The animals reflect the same balance of beauty and danger. The coyotes move in family groups and howl toward the same point on the horizon each night, as if calling for someone who never returns. The geckos chatter like broken radios. Even the giant insects hum in tones that fit the wind's key. Nature doesn't rebuild order, it redefines it. The sun's path across the desert is not static. The direction of shadows changes accurately with time of day, giving the illusion of real planetary motion. This slow shifting light is what makes the Mojave feel alive, even when motionless. The world's clock ticks through sunlight instead of numbers. Many of the abandoned homes contain small details of humanity: a chessboard left mid game, a record player with one broken needle, a pair of glasses beside a burned bed. None of these items serve gameplay purposes, they exist purely for emotion. The Mojave remembers its people even when they're gone. The broken highways stretch far beyond the player's path. They were modeled to extend into invisible distance, creating the illusion of a larger world still waiting beyond the horizon. Bethesda's engine couldn't render infinite space, but Obsidian used fading fog to hide boundaries within beauty. It makes limitation feel infinite. The skybox of New Vegas contains hidden layers of atmosphere, faint heat shimmer during the day, and thin mist at dawn. These layers create the illusion that air itself carries memory. When you look up, it feels like history is suspended above you, patient and endless. The voice actors recorded most of their dialogue in near whispers. The director encouraged quiet delivery, so players would lean in to listen. It makes conversations feel intimate, as if every character speaks from exhaustion, not aggression. Fallout, New Vegas was designed to be heard like confession, not confrontation. And perhaps the most haunting detail, the city lights never go out. No matter how many endings you reach, how many battles you fight, the strip keeps glowing. It's not triumph, it's not tragedy. It's memory preserved in neon. The world continues because it must. The desert endures because it has no choice. And somewhere, above all that noise and stillness, the stars keep shining, indifferent but beautiful reminders that even at the end of everything, light learns to survive. The Mojave's beauty lies in contrast. It is a wasteland of emptiness filled with life, a desert where quiet carries weight. The more you walk through it, the more you realize that its silence isn't absence, it's presence. Every grain of sand, every hum of wind, every flicker of light exists for a reason. Fallout. New Vegas was crafted to make stillness feel alive. The color of the desert sky changes every hour, shifting through shades of copper, violet, and soft gray. This wasn't a random artistic choice. The developers measured real world desert lighting at different times of day and used those tones to create emotional weather. Early morning feels calm, noon feels oppressive, and evening feels nostalgic. Light becomes emotion disguised as physics. The sound design follows the same philosophy. When the sun is high, the wind grows louder, filling the space with warmth that feels heavy. At night, the sound thins, replaced by distant echoes of insects and the soft hum of power lines. Even the desert knows when to sleep. The pre war billboards that stand broken across the highway were designed to tell small stories through their damage. A smiling family whose faces have peeled away, a soldier pointing at a horizon that no longer exists. Every torn image is a poem about memory's decay. They serve no mechanical purpose, but they remind you that the world remembers what people tried to forget. When you first enter the city, the lights of the strip shimmer through dust. That shimmer isn't just for effect, it's atmospheric distortion created by simulated heat. The air ripples differently at various temperatures, so the closer you get, the more the city seems to melt into dream. The illusion makes Las Vegas look eternal and unreachable all at once. The robots that patrol the strip move with rhythm. Their servos hum at slightly different pitches, forming a faint chord when several gather together. The effect was unintentional at first, but the sound designers decided to keep it. They said it made the machines feel like a choir technology, still trying to sing humanity's song. When you rest near campfires outside the city, the desert hum changes. The sound of wind lowers, replaced by the crackle of wood and the gentle hiss of cooling sand. The firelight flickers in slow motion, painting orange shadows across the rocks. Bethesda's lighting team designed that flicker to follow a real rhythm of burning embers, so the light feels calm, not chaotic. It's the closest thing the Mojave has to warmth that listens. Every settlement tells a story through architecture. In Good Springs, the buildings are close together, built for safety and community. In Prim, they line up along the road like a trail of ambition. In Novak, they spread apart, each home isolated and tired. And in Freeside, they pile on top of each other like forgotten dreams. The world's geography mirrors its people's hearts. The Hoover Dam, centerpiece of the wasteland, was designed as a symbol of contradiction, power, and fragility at once. Its immense concrete surface glows pale gold at sunrise, reflecting light down the Colorado River. That reflection was coded to shimmer with waves, creating an illusion of motion that never ends. The dam doesn't just divide factions, it divides philosophies. It stands as both monument and mirror. The NCR's soldiers were written as tired rather than heroic. Their dialogue is filled with sighs, hesitation, and dry humor. The writers wanted them to feel human, not conquerors, but survivors of bureaucracy. They march because they must, not because they believe. The Legion, by contrast, speaks in deliberate rhythm. Their words carry weight and brevity. The calm authority in their speech hides the cruelty beneath it. The sound designers even slowed down certain voice files to make their sentences sound heavier, as if shaped from iron. The result is intimidation through stillness. Mr. House, sealed away in his tower, was written to sound both ancient and modern. His dialogue carries mathematical precision, no wasted words, no emotion unnecessary to logic. He represents humanity's obsession with permanence, a man who chose control over decay. His world is bright and spotless because he refuses to let it age. Even his silence feels curated. The radio songs of New Vegas carry a strange melancholy. Their cheerful lyrics and vintage tones hide sadness beneath them. Many of those tracks were chosen not for popularity, but for mood. They're lullabies from a time when people believed tomorrow would always come. The radio plays them like a memory that refuses to fade. When you wander through the Mojave at night, the stars shine sharper than any other fallout sky. Each constellation was mapped manually by the art team based on real patterns. Some stars flicker brighter than others, simulating thin clouds drifting unseen above. That shimmer creates the illusion that even the heavens breathe. It's calm, endless, and slightly haunting, the same beauty that comes from knowing how small you are. The neon signs along the strip flicker, intentionally uneven. Some letters fade, others pulse slower, a few never light at all. The pattern repeats irregularly, so no two nights look identical. The city lives in half light, where prosperity feels temporary. That flicker became part of New Vegas's soul beauty that refuses to stay perfect. When storms sweep across the wasteland, the wind sometimes carries static. It's faint, but it's there, the ghost of old radio signals still trapped in the atmosphere. The sound designers called it electric memory. Every storm becomes a whisper from the past, words long erased, still echoing through charged air. The companions you meet throughout the desert were written to feel like fragments of a broken whole. Each one carries guilt for something beyond their control. The wanderer who lost faith, the soldier haunted by obedience, the scavenger afraid to hope. Together, they form what the writers called a choir of regret. They don't exist to solve problems. They exist to remind you that healing isn't victory, it's endurance. The Mojave's color tones at dusk are tuned to make distance look infinite. The further you look, the softer the colors become. This gradient of fading light pulls the player forward without them realizing. The world uses beauty to guide you, not arrows. The campfires scattered throughout the desert each have their own crackle pattern. No two burn alike. The randomness was intentional, meant to keep the ear from fatigue. Sound repetition in long games can dull immersion, so the audio team built hundreds of small variations. Even Flame in New Vegas has personality. At the edge of the map, where mountains meet invisible walls, the light grows hazy. It's the illusion of distance, created with layers of dust that blend into the horizon. The developers said they wanted players to feel like the world continued forever, even if it didn't, hope disguised as horizon. In abandoned gas stations, the old pre-war posters curl at the edges. Those curls are not static textures, they move slightly in wind. The team used microphysics to make paper flutter realistically. It's one of those touches no one notices, yet everyone feels. If you stand near a radio long enough, you can sometimes hear faint distortion beneath the music. That distortion was left intentionally to mimic the decay of magnetic tape. Even entertainment carries decay, the sound of time turning into dust. The city's monorail hums, with low frequency vibration audible only near the station. The designers added it to remind players that the world once had movement, that progress once had sound. It's nostalgia written in machinery. The colors of the Mojave change after rainfall. The sand darkens slightly, reflecting more of the sunset. The rare storms become moments of rebirth. The desert, even if for a few minutes, looks alive again. And perhaps the most gentle secret of all, the world never stops listening. When you pause the game, the wind still blows, radios still hum, and the stars still move. The Mojave doesn't wait for you, it keeps living quietly, a reminder that even after everything ends, life goes on. That's the heart of Fallout New Vegas. It's not about war or victory, it's about finding calm in ruin, beauty in silence, and purpose in the act of walking toward the next horizon. In the heart of the Mojave, stillness has texture. The air carries warmth that feels heavy yet comforting, the kind that makes sound move slowly. Fallout. New Vegas was designed around that sensation, the quiet weight of heat pressing down on memory. The team studied how real deserts distort vision, how wind bends sound, and how distance plays tricks on light. They built not just a wasteland, but a mood that breathes. When the sun begins to sink, the desert glows in colors that seem impossible pale rose, fading to violet, orange to soft gray. These tones weren't created at random. The lighting team borrowed palettes from photographs taken near real Nevada, then desaturated them by half to make the world feel tired. The Mojave is a land of beauty after exhaustion. Even its sunsets sigh. The tumbleweeds that roll along cracked roads are part of the same physics system that controls bullet casings. They react to slope, wind, and collision. Occasionally, one will drift into a cactus and stop, as though it's found a place to rest. Small details like that give the desert a strange kindness even motion learns when to be still. Every radio in New Vegas hums at slightly different pitch, even when tuned to the same station. This subtle imperfection simulates real analog equipment. It also gives the sense that the world is still piecing itself together from fragments. The Mojave doesn't broadcast one song, it broadcasts countless broken echoes of hope. The casinos on the strip all have unique ambient music. The Tops plays warm brass and soft percussion, evoking smoky nostalgia. The Ultralux uses minimal piano chords, slow and deliberate, like expensive loneliness. The Gomorrah has low bass lines and sparse percussion danger disguised as rhythm. Together they form a sonic map of temptation, each tune whispering a different kind of vice. The artificial lighting on the strip shifts over time. In the early evening, it glows amber, a tone that feels welcoming. By midnight, it turns sharp white, sterile, and lonely. The city's mood changes, like a living thing charming at first glance, indifferent once you stay too long. Every bottle of Sunset Sarsaparilla holds a small secret. The golden star caps, rare collectibles scattered throughout the wasteland. They serve no grand mechanical purpose beyond curiosity, but their existence gives weight to legend. The Mojave rewards wanderers not with power, but with stories to tell. Even the most useless treasures feel sacred when earned by patience. The pre war houses along the outskirts of the map were designed to decay realistically. Paint peels only on walls facing the sun, and interiors fade faster where sand can drift through broken windows. Each home carries its own history, told quietly through color and ruin. The artist once said that destruction should feel earned, not random. The New Vegas Strip itself was built as an illusion of hope. Its layout forms a subtle spiral, a design that draws players inward, like moths circling light. You begin surrounded by desert silence, then step into neon that hums like artificial day. It's comfort built on lies, and yet it still feels safe. The Lucky 38, Mr. House's tower, was modeled after classic mid century modern design. Its sharp lines and clean symmetry represent a version of the future that never came true. Even its shape, round atop a narrow base, mirrors a champagne glass, a toast frozen in time. The tower doesn't celebrate wealth anymore, it celebrates memory. When you stand at the top of that tower, the Mojave stretches endlessly below, shimmering under sunlight. The clouds above move slower than anywhere else in the game. The developers coded them to drift gently, symbolizing how time itself slows when power isolates you. Mr. House lives inside that slowness, preserved by technology, untouched by weather or humanity. The companions who join you throughout your journey each reflect a fragment of the Mojave's soul. Some represent guilt, others resilience, others the ache of remembering what was lost. Their dialogue changes subtly, depending on where you are. If you travel through certain ruins, their voices soften. If you stand near certain memorials, they fall silent. The world and its people grieve together without needing words. Even the smallest sound, the click of a reloading weapon, the crunch of gravel beneath boots, carries depth. The sound designers layered recordings from real weapons and broken machinery to create texture, then blended them with faint echoes of empty air. Every action in New Vegas feels old, as though it's happening in a world that's already forgotten how to be new. At dawn, the desert glows pale gold for only a few minutes before the heat arrives. During that time, every shadow stretches long, reaching toward the horizon. This moment was intentionally lengthened by the lighting team to make the beginning of each day feel hopeful, even in ruin. It's the game's quiet reminder that beauty still survives. The animals of the Mojave were designed with melancholy in mind. The geckos hiss like laughter from an old radio, the bighorners snort gently when calm, and the coyotes rest together in pairs, even when idle. The desert is harsh, but its creatures still know companionship. Obsidian said that was the message nature endures, because it refuses to be alone. The NCR outposts scattered across the wasteland were built from the same modular assets, yet each one feels unique. Designers changed the angle of each sandbag pile and the color of each flag slightly, giving subtle personality to repetition. The Army's uniformity hides countless small human touches. Even in war, someone arranged those supplies with care. In Freeside, the smell of decay is invisible but imagined. The sound of flies, the distant cough of beggars, and the faint echo of dripping pipes create sensory illusion. The world tricks your brain into thinking you can smell rust and rot. Fallout. New Vegas uses sound to paint scent. The old pre war radios scattered around the Mojave sometimes spark when turned on. The flashes last only a moment, a reminder that power is unstable. But when they do work, their warm glow cuts through darkness like a small act of defiance. Even dead technology still tries to comfort. At the edge of the map lies the Long 15, a road broken by time. You can't walk it, but you can see its remains glowing under the Sunday. It represents paths that once connected people, highways that used to mean movement, trade, laughter, and escape. Now they lead nowhere. The Mojave holds its roads like old scars. The canyons south of the Strip were carved using scanned real terrain data. The designers wanted players to feel like the ground itself had history older than the war. The patterns of erosion, the way cliffs twist and overlap, all of it speaks of time measured not in years, but in silence. When sandstorms roll in, visibility drops and color fades. The game's engine shifts saturation levels to near monochrome, creating the illusion of blindness. You can still hear the world, but you can't see it clearly. An intentional moment of vulnerability. The desert reclaims your certainty for a while, reminding you who truly owns the land. The Mojave's light never truly dies, even at midnight. There's always a faint horizon glow, a subtle blue thread that keeps the world visible. It represents radiation, but also persistence, the idea that energy remains even after purpose fades. The wasteland refuses to be completely dark, and in the middle of all that ruin, there is still music. Not the kind you find on a radio or in a casino, but the natural rhythm of existence, the pulse of insects, the hum of wires, the steady heartbeat of heat itself. Fallout. New Vegas was built to remind players that even after the end, life hums quietly on. The Mojave's song is simple. Everything ends, but not everything stops. There's a rhythm to the Mojave that doesn't belong to clocks or calendars. It moves with the heat, the sound of wind, and the long stretches of quiet between footsteps. Fallout. New Vegas was designed to live inside that rhythm, a space where the world feels both ancient and awake. Every shadow, every creak of a signpost, every shimmer of distant glass carries that sense of stillness that only deserts can hold. When you first wander away from the safety of Good Springs, the land opens wide and slow. The horizon stretches without edges, and the sky looks heavier than air should ever be. This emptiness is deliberate. The developers built the desert to make players feel small, but not powerless, to remind them that the world doesn't revolve around their journey. You exist inside its breathing, not above it. Each road in the Mojave bends for a reason. Designers avoided straight paths wherever possible. Roads curve with the land's shape, following natural geography. Those gentle arcs make travel feel slower and more thoughtful. You're never rushing, you're drifting, as if time itself walks beside you. When the wind picks up, sand particles move differently depending on direction. They travel faster downhill, slower over rock. It's a hidden physics detail that gives the illusion of real air pressure. The Mojave doesn't just look alive, it behaves alive. The sound of your footsteps changes based on temperature. During the heat of the day, gravel sounds dry and sharp. At night, cooler air dampens the echo. You might not notice consciously, but your mind does. The desert reacts to warmth, the way people do, louder when burning, quieter when calm. Even the smallest pieces of debris tell stories. Cans, bottles, and paper scraps scattered through the ruins aren't placed randomly. They follow patterns of wind and decay. A bottle at the edge of a road means someone once stopped to rest. A stack of papers trapped beneath a rock means shelter from storms. The Mojave's clutter is archaeology disguised as trash. In the distance, power lines stretch endlessly. Some lean crooked, others still stand tall. They hum faintly when you walk close. That sound isn't just background noise, it's the whisper of energy still pulsing through forgotten veins. Fallout. New Vegas made even electricity sound tired, like something that keeps working because it doesn't know how to quit. The sunsets were built to fade slower than in real life. The light lingers across the desert for several extra minutes, stretching golden glow into violet haze. This gives players time to stop and breathe. The Mojave teaches rest by example beauty that refuses to hurry away. At night, the neon from the strip glows far beyond the city. You can see the reflection shimmer off rocks and metal miles away. The glow has no direction, it just exists, humming quietly across sand like memory refusing to die. The city becomes a lighthouse for wanderers, guiding them not toward safety, but toward curiosity. Inside the casinos, the air feels heavy even through the screen. The sound mix uses layers of low frequency hums and muffled chatter to mimic real insulation. It makes the player feel wrapped in luxury that suffocates. The strip isn't alive, it's preserved. Its glittering lights hide the sound of exhaustion. The characters who inhabit the Mojave were written with quiet sadness. The farmers in the outposts, the traders on the road, even the gamblers at the tables, each one speaks as though they've told their story before, and no one listened. The voice acting was recorded softly, often just above a whisper, to create intimacy. The world doesn't yell its stories, it confides them. When you find an abandoned shack, the smallest details give it life. A single chair turned toward a broken window, a clock with its hands frozen at midnight, a bed with one pillow folded perfectly. These touches suggest someone once cared, someone once cleaned, someone once stayed. Fallout New Vegas hides grief in stillness, not spectacle. The night sky over the Mojave carries faint auroras. Most players never notice them, but if you stand still long enough, colors shift near the horizon. Those lights symbolize radiation drifting across the atmosphere, poison made beautiful by distance. Even destruction learns how to glow. In the wasteland, the hum of old radios mixes with wind, like two ghosts arguing. The music from before the war feels out of place and yet perfectly natural, its optimism echoing through ruin. That tension between joy and emptiness defines New Vegas laughter that hurts, hope that knows better but continues anyway. When you sit beside a campfire, watch how sparks rise. Each ember follows a different path, twisting gently in the air before fading into black. That animation is based on real wind data from Nevada desert nights. The developers said they wanted campfires to feel hypnotic moments of comfort shaped by science. The Hoover Dam hums constantly, even when you can't hear it clearly. The sound exists beneath everything, a deep mechanical note resonating through stone. It's the heart of the wasteland, beating without rest. The dam doesn't belong to the NCR or the Legion or Mr. House. It belongs to time, power that old answers to no one. If you wander through the ruins near Camp Searchlight, the light behaves strangely. Dust glows in green rays that seem to hang motionless, its radiation visualized not as terror, but as memory, frozen midair. The glow makes destruction look almost peaceful. That contrast defines the Mojave beauty born from poison. Each creature you encounter moves with its own rhythm. Rad scorpions shift their claws in slow waves before striking. Night stalkers pace in circles like nervous dogs. Even the smallest gecko sways before it attacks, mimicking the rhythm of heat shimmer. These micro patterns make combat feel alive without chaos. Every living thing in the Mojave dances to the desert's tempo. The wind inside canyons carries a lower pitch than in open plains. That's because sound bounces between walls longer before fading. The game's engine replicates this with layered echoes, creating a sense of depth you can feel even with your eyes closed. It's how you know you've left the open air. Your ears tell the story before your eyes do. When you stand still long enough, the desert begins to speak in tiny movements. A pebble rolls, a lizard scurries, a bird calls once and goes quiet. The sound team called this breathing silence. It's not real silence, but the illusion of a world holding its breath. The old signs that read, "Welcome to fabulous New Vegas," are slightly tilted. Each one leans a little differently, depending on how far radiation or weather has worn the supports. They symbolize the city's persistence, still proud, still glowing, even when the world tilts around it. In Vault 3, faint echoes of dripping water mix with machinery. The balance between natural and artificial sound is what makes it unsettling. The world doesn't know whether it belongs to nature or man anymore. The Mojave itself has become the experiment. When lightning strikes during a storm, the brightness lingers for half a second longer than natural light. That delay was intentional, a cinematic exaggeration to make the moment feel otherworldly. Each flash paints the desert like a black and white photograph before the color returns. Destruction becomes art for just a heartbeat. If you listen closely at dawn, the birds of the Mojave sing differently depending on location. Near water, they chirp higher. Near rocks, lower. These sound layers were added to create a sense of geography through audio. You can tell where you are without seeing. At the very edges of the map, the world seems to fade into distance. The horizon blurs softly, as if memory itself can't quite remember where the desert ends. The illusion makes the Mojave infinite. Fallout. New Vegas doesn't confine you, it lets you wander until wonder replaces direction. And when you finally stop walking, when the dust settles around your boots and the wind falls quiet, the world feels patient. The Mojave doesn't rush, it waits for you to breathe, to listen, to rest. The desert understands exhaustion. It was built for survivors, people who find peace not in victory, but in persistence. That's what makes Fallout New Vegas different. It isn't a story about conquering ruin, it's a story about finding calm within it. The Mojave doesn't rush. It turns quietly beneath the sun, letting days stretch thin and slow until time itself begins to feel optional. Fallout. New Vegas was built around that feeling, the rhythm of a world that endures, not because it wants to, but because it doesn't know how to stop. Its silence isn't emptiness, it's survival made gentle. When you step onto cracked highway pavement, listen closely. The faint metallic hiss that lingers beneath your footsteps isn't random sound, it's heat escaping from baked concrete. The design team mixed recordings of real desert roads under midday Sunday. Each footstep carries that faint shimmer, like air sighing through metal. Even the ground remembers warmth. The cacti scattered across the desert were built individually. No two have the same pattern of spines. Their shadows bend differently at noon and again at dusk, stretching in long, soft shapes. They are the Mojave's oldest residents, patient, still, indifferent to politics or war. They've been watching since long before the bombs. The light from campfires flickers in rhythm with the player's breathing. The animation speed was linked to subtle character motion, so flame and body pulse together. It gives a sense of comfort that most people never consciously notice. The Mojave teaches connection not through words, but through rhythm. Every abandoned radio tower still hums faintly. That low vibration, almost below hearing, was added to simulate power lines singing in dry air. It creates unease at first, then becomes strangely comforting. The desert hums like a giant machine built to remember. The color of the sand changes with temperature. In cooler hours, it reflects blue from the sky. By noon, it glows golden and pale. The lighting system tracks the angle of sunlight precisely, blending hues in real time. It's a painter's version of physics, the world breathing in color. When storms drift across the desert, the lightning sometimes flashes silently in the far distance. Those flashes aren't just visual effects, they're landmarks of weather. You can tell where storms are forming miles away. The Mojave gives warning the way nature always does, through beauty first. The Lucky 38 Tower was designed to look like an eye watching the world. Its windows glow brighter near the top, creating a pupil in the skyline. The architecture itself tells a story of surveillance progress without empathy. The world beneath it burns and rebuilds, but the tower always watches, unchanged. The animals of the Mojave behave differently at night. Bighorners gather close to cliffs to avoid predators. Coyotes travel in pairs instead of packs, and giant ants slow their patrol routes to conserve energy. The ecosystem follows real desert logic. Life adapts not with strength, but with patience. The music that plays as you wander alone was recorded with real instruments, but filtered through static to sound half remembered. The composer described it as nostalgia stretched thin. Each note fades before it finishes, like a memory disappearing mid thought. The sound isn't sad, it's simply old, the way the desert is old. If you stand near a skeleton in the sand, look closely at the bones. Tiny grains of dust move across them when wind passes. The physics engine treats bones like small dunes, sculpted and reshaped over time. Even the dead become part of the landscape. The Mojave Outpost statues the giant soldiers shaking hands were modeled to cast long shadows at sunset that touch the road. That alignment happens once per in-game day. It's a quiet symbol of unity surviving only in shadow. Even if the living forget, the light still remembers the gesture. The interiors of casinos contain faint perfumes of sound clinking glasses, shuffled cards, low laughter. Those noises loop softly beneath the main track, creating illusion of constant motion. It feels alive, even when no one moves. The strip pretends eternity through background noise. The city's neon signs were programmed to fade with time. The longer the game runs, the more certain letters begin to flicker irregularly. Most players never notice, but the Mojave slowly ages around you. Light itself grows tired. The small settlements scattered along highways are arranged in natural sight lines. You can always see smoke, or a water tower, or a flicker of light from one when standing at another. The developers called this comfort distance. Even in ruin, people build where they can still see signs of life. The radios that play through the wasteland carry faint static, tuned to mimic distance. When you climb higher ground, the signal strengthens. When you descend, it weakens. That fluctuation was designed to make travel feel connected. The world listens when you rise, then forgets you gently when you fall. At night, the strip's light reflects off clouds above it, painting a permanent glow across the sky. That glow reaches even remote corners of the desert. It makes darkness less absolute. Civilization may be broken, but it still refuses to vanish completely. Every character model was built to look weathered by sun and wind. Even clean clothing carries faint dust patterns. The Mojave is a world that marks its people gently but permanently. Everyone who lives there carries geography on their skin. The voice acting sessions were recorded with minimal direction. Actors were told to sound like they were speaking into dry air, as if words were evaporating. The result feels natural, weary, and real. Dialogue becomes part of the atmosphere sentences that sound like wind wearing human shape. The ruins of the old overpass near Novak were left intentionally incomplete. The developers said they wanted a structure that looked like it was still collapsing slowly, year after year. You can hear faint creaks of shifting metal when you stand underneath. Even ruin continues to move. The vending machines you find scattered through the wasteland hum in the same key as the strip's background music. This musical connection ties the smallest detail to the grandest environment. creating unity you can feel but never see. Fallout. New Vegas teaches cohesion through sound, not instruction. The color of water near radiation zones deepens to green only under sunlight. At night, it appears nearly black. This was an intentional choice. Danger should look peaceful under stars, because fear sleeps too. The companions who travel with you breathe audibly when walking in heat. Those subtle sounds, recorded in quiet studio sessions, were layered to create empathy. You feel their fatigue as your own. The Mojave becomes shared exhaustion, people surviving not together by choice, but by necessity. In abandoned gas stations, ceiling fans still turn slowly. The motion is powered by invisible code, not electricity. They move simply because that's what they did before the war. Habit survives even when purpose doesn't. The reflection of sunlight on car windshields was coded to flash randomly. The glimmer looks like movement in the distance, tricking your eyes. Its loneliness made visual your mind, searching for signs of life that aren't there. The sand near Hoover Dam contains a faint metallic sparkle. Those are fragments of broken rebar, tiny reminders of the construction that once defined human ambition. The desert wears those remains like jewelry rust turned into glitter. And when night finally falls, the desert exhales. The temperature drops, the wind softens, and the stars appear one by one. They don't twinkle brightly, they hum softly, like quiet embers scattered across black velvet. Fallout. New Vegas ends every day the same way, with calm acceptance. The world may never heal, but it has learned how to rest. The Mojave's calm has weight to it, a heavy silence that doesn't feel empty but full, like the pause after a song ends. Fallout, New Vegas thrives inside that silence. It's a world that doesn't need to shout to feel alive. Every creak of metal, every whisper of wind, every long stretch of nothing is a reminder that existence continues quietly, even after the world forgets why. The desert's colors change with patience. At dawn, sand turns pale pink, almost gentle. By afternoon, it burns golden under the harsh sky, and at dusk, it fades to the soft gray of old paper. The transitions are slow and seamless, designed to calm the eye. The Mojave isn't meant to overwhelm, it's meant to lull. Even ruin can soothe if you let it. The cracked billboards that stand along the old highways are like ghosts of optimism. The smiling faces and painted slogans still cling to color, even as time eats away at their edges. Each flake of paint, each torn poster, tells a story about how hope used to advertise itself. They don't warn you, they remember you. The train tracks running through the wasteland were never meant to move trains again. Instead, they serve as quiet guides, thin lines of iron leading nowhere. When the wind blows, you can almost hear their hum, the sound of journeys that once had destinations. The Mojave's paths still exist, but purpose has left them. Only memory travels now. Every rock and canyon wall in the desert reflects sound differently. The game's engine calculates each echo's delay based on distance and surface shape. It means that when you shout or fire a weapon, the world answers uniquely every time. The Mojave isn't a backdrop, it's a participant. In the town of Novak, the old dinosaur statue wasn't just a landmark. It was a symbol of forgotten dreams, the age of roadside attractions, when people once traveled for fun instead of survival. Its hollow body holds echoes of laughter that never truly faded. The developers kept its name as a small joke, but its presence became something gentle, a relic smiling into eternity. When the wind passes through broken fences, the wire hums. The pitch shifts with speed, creating a natural melody. It's not music in the traditional sense, but it's still harmony. The Mojave is a choir of decay, singing through rust and time. The bones scattered across the sand are positioned deliberately. Some sit half buried, others bleached white under full Sunday. Their placement follows the slope of the land, as though the wind itself laid them to rest. The world treats death without drama, not tragedy, not fear, just another stage of stillness. The stars above the Mojave shine brighter than in any other Fallout world. The team darkened the night sky's ambient light level to make constellations visible. They wanted players to feel small, but in a peaceful way. The sky reminds you that even here, among ruins and ghosts, the universe still works as it always has. The end of civilization didn't stop the stars from keeping time. The Hoover Dam's water reflects sunrise perfectly for a few brief minutes each day. The developers adjusted the lighting engine so that during early morning, the reflection aligns with the player's approach from the west. It creates an unintentional moment of awe man's monument meeting nature's forgiveness. In Freeside, the flicker of broken neon casts slow moving light across alley walls. Each flash reveals graffiti, posters, or faces for a split second before the dark returns. It feels like memory stuttering, moments appearing and disappearing, refusing to fade completely. That rhythm of light and shadow gives the city its heartbeat. The voice of the radios fades differently depending on location. Inside caves or buildings, the sound softens and echoes faintly. Outdoors, it carries clear and lonely. The change isn't just technical, it tells a story of confinement and openness, of how sound behaves when the world either listens or doesn't. The crows that perch on dead trees move in small groups of three or four. They circle, land, and watch, then take flight again after a few minutes. They never attack, never speak, they just exist, patient and unbothered. The animators called them the audience, quiet witnesses to everything that happens below. The strip's bright colors were modeled after real vintage Las Vegas photographs, faded and worn. The neon glows too softly to be modern, as if even electricity remembers nostalgia. The designers wanted the lights to look tired, like they'd been burning for a century, glamour surviving through exhaustion. In the outer desert, dust storms move like slow waves. The particles shift in layers, one drifting east, another west, both moving at different speeds. That motion creates the illusion that the air itself has texture. You can almost feel it brushing past your skin. The old signs for pre-war motels still stand along the highway. Some still spin, though barely. The motors were coded to turn irregularly, creaking after long pauses. The sound is faint, but it's their mechanical ghosts refusing to stop working. The wildlife in the Mojave avoids roads. Animals wander in arcs around highways and ruins, instinctively avoiding the old human paths. It's a subtle behavior meant to show that nature has reclaimed wisdom. The creatures move freely where humans once built rules. If you listen near windmills, you'll hear a low groan as they turn. The rotation sound is slower than real life, deeper, more mournful. It was tuned that way on purpose. The team wanted to evoke the feeling of machinery that still dreams it has a purpose, long after the world stopped needing power. The campsites left behind by travelers always hold small clues about who they were. A pair of boots, a dented cup, a burned log turned sideways instead of stacked. None of these details affect gameplay. They simply exist to prove that someone once passed through, someone who left quietly. The Mojave tells human stories through leftover warmth. Even the sky carries history. The cloud patterns follow real meteorological data, broad streaks shaped by air pressure, low layers over mountains, and flat horizons where heat scatters moisture. It's not random weather, it's slow poetry. The shadows of power lines fall perfectly along the road at midday. That alignment was done deliberately, a design of order within chaos. Even in the wasteland, some things still line up just right. The strip slot machines blink in asynchronous patterns. No two ever match, and their hums are slightly out of tune. The result is hypnotic and disorienting, like a dream that doesn't loop correctly. The lights promise luck, but the rhythm promises fatigue. The sound of your footsteps on metal grates echoes in three layers: the direct step, the vibration of the structure, and the hollow air beneath. That triple sound gives every rooftop or catwalk its depth. You're never walking alone. Even the floor answers you. Every bottle of purified water has a slightly different color tint. Some lean green, others clear, others faintly brown. These subtle variations represent filtration quality, a quiet acknowledgement that nothing in this world is perfectly clean. Even purity carries history. And at night, when all the fires burn low and the strip's glow fades behind you, the desert becomes a lullaby. The hum of wind replaces dialogue. The stars take over the skyline. The Mojave whispers the same truth over and over, that survival isn't about victory, it's about still being here when morning returns. Fallout. New Vegas ends every day the same way. The world rests and it waits. And in that waiting, you find peace. The Mojave feels eternal, but it's always changing. Every grain of sand that moves underfoot shifts the memory of the land by an inch. Fallout. New Vegas was designed to capture that movement, not fast or loud, but the slow erosion of everything once familiar. It's a world in mid exhale, holding on to the last breath of civilization before silence takes over. At sunrise, the light creeps across the desert floor like spilled gold. The first few minutes of morning are the quietest time in the entire game. No gunfire, no dialogue, no footsteps, just wind brushing through creosote and dust. The color of that dawn light was hand painted for softness. The team said they wanted the sun to feel like forgiveness. When you look out from a high ridge, you can see thin trails of smoke in the distance. Some come from NCR camps, others from burned out homes. They're faint, but they give the illusion that the world beyond your reach is still alive. The Mojave never feels empty because it still remembers motion, even when you can't reach it. The power lines that cross the desert act like veins across a dead body. The sound of their hum deepens at night, an illusion caused by the cooler air slowing sound waves. The hum becomes a kind of music electricity, singing its own lullaby. Technology may have outlived its purpose, but it still knows how to make melody. In the quiet hours after midnight, the sky in the Mojave turns to deep blue-black. The stars look sharper here than anywhere else. The artists brighten them just enough to give shape to constellations you'll never learn the names of. It doesn't matter. Their purpose isn't knowledge, it's wonder. You look up and you breathe slower. The universe reminds you that ruin is small. The empty motels that line the road carry ghosts of comfort. Beds stripped of blankets, vending machines still stocked with sugar, long hardened into stone. The hum of broken air conditioners plays faintly in the distance. The team said those motels were designed as monuments to routine, places where normal life was interrupted mid-breath. They make you feel nostalgia for something you never lived. The old road signs are more than decoration. Their faded letters point toward towns that no longer exist. Sometimes, if you follow them, you'll find only a few broken walls, a mailbox, maybe a name carved into a plank. It's the game's quiet joke, even directions have become myths. The strip itself, from a distance, glows like salvation, but up close, the neon flickers, revealing the grime beneath. The reflections in the casino glass are slightly delayed, coded to mimic aging technology. The world wants to look perfect, but time refuses. The desert always wins. The companions that walk beside you never speak just to fill silence. Their lines appear only when meaning calls for them. This quiet balance between dialogue and emptiness was intentional to make you appreciate human voice the way the Mojave appreciates rainfall. Every conversation becomes rare and precious. The river that runs below Hoover Dam moves slower than it should. The current was reduced to make the water feel heavy, thick with history. The light dances across its surface, like memory bending under pressure. That river has carried too much reflections of cities long gone, echoes of voices that no longer speak. When wind passes over old radio towers, the sound of cables clattering creates unintentional rhythm. The designers left it untouched. They said the world was better when it made its own music. Each settlement's design follows emotional architecture. Good Springs sits low and wide, inviting calm. Prim hugs its highway, clinging to safety. Novak stretches toward sky, hopeful but weary. Freeside sprawls without shape, chaos pretending to be community. The strip rises above all of it, arrogant and lonely. The Mojave is one long emotional ladder. Inside abandoned factories, light filters through holes in the ceiling. The dust floating through those beams moves at random speeds, creating a sense of slow gravity. It's how you know time still works here, just differently. Fallout. New Vegas doesn't freeze history, it lets it drift. The sound of wind changes depending on what direction you face. The engine simulates pressure difference, so the same gust sounds different if you turn around. It's as though the Mojave has a personality, always the same air, but never the same voice. The skeletons in collapsed buildings are posed deliberately, often near tools, or chairs, or radios. They tell small, unspoken stories of how people once lived and died without needing text. A wrench in hand, a record on the floor, a half eaten meal still beside them, quiet lives, interrupted softly. The moonlight on the desert floor doesn't reflect perfectly white. It carries faint shades of blue and silver, each chosen to keep the landscape visible without ruining the calm. The game uses that soft color to make night feel safe instead of cold. The Mojave doesn't fear darkness, it uses it as rest. If you linger near an NCR checkpoint, you'll notice guards sigh when the wind shifts. The voice actors recorded subtle breath sounds to simulate fatigue. It's realism built through empathy. These aren't soldiers guarding empire, they're people trying not to fall asleep. The vending machines near Freeside glow dimly even when they're empty. The flicker represents residual energy, power that refuses to die completely. The designers called it haunted electricity. Light becomes a ghost that doesn't know it's dead. At the edge of the map, near the broken highways, the horizon always shimmers. That shimmer is caused by a heat mirage programmed to move like a living thing. It dances faintly, promising distance where there is none. The illusion isn't deceit, it's hope pretending to still exist. The companion's footsteps sync subtly with yours. When you slow, they slow. When you stop, they stop after one extra step. That delay was built intentionally to make them feel human. Nobody stops perfectly in unison. Even friendship needs a beat between hearts. When lightning flashes, it lights the world for a fraction longer than normal. The brightness freezes motion for an instant. like a photograph of destruction, its art pretending to be weather. The sound of insects at night follows a slow cycle. The chirps fade and return in timed intervals, simulating the rise and fall of temperature. The Mojave sings in pulses, like breathing. If you walk into a ruin during sunrise, light spills through cracks in the roof, like water through a sieve. Each beam carries dust that glitters for a heartbeat before vanishing. It's easy to forget that this is a world made of code because it feels like memory, not pixels. The color of fire was adjusted slightly for warmth. Instead of bright orange, it leans toward amber. The developers wanted it to comfort, not warn. Even destruction here glows softly, and at the end of every long day, when the player stops moving and the sound fades to wind, the Mojave keeps turning. The lights dim, the stars hold their places, and the desert hums. Fallout. New Vegas never truly ends. It simply waits for you to wake up again, another wanderer, another morning, another sunrise over the same patient world. The Mojave is a place of echoes. Every footstep, every sigh, every whisper of sand carries forward into the distance, repeating itself softer each time until it disappears completely. Fallout. New Vegas was built around that idea that nothing in this world truly ends. It just fades slower than we expect. The game doesn't mourn its world. It studies it, gently, like an archaeologist brushing dust from a forgotten smile. When you first leave the protection of Good Springs and step into the open desert, the light shifts from gold to white. The change is subtle, but meaningful. It's the desert's way of reminding you that warmth and danger look the same from far away. The developers wanted the first few hours to feel like standing between comfort and consequence, a fragile piece. If you follow the old railway lines long enough, you'll find cars still sitting on tracks that no longer connect. The metal wheels rust into the rails, frozen in place forever. They look like punctuation marks at the end of a sentence that never finished. The Mojave doesn't erase the past, it just stops writing new chapters. The skeletons left scattered across the desert are not random. Some are near radios, others in shade, others curled beneath scraps of blanket. The team placed each one to feel personal, never theatrical. These aren't tragedies, they're quiet conclusions. Fallout. New Vegas treats death the same way it treats weather, natural, inevitable, unremarkable, yet somehow beautiful. The old road signs that read Vegas or Route 66 tilt slightly west. The designers angled them that way on purpose to make them look like they were leaning toward the sunset. They stand as the Mojave's oldest pilgrims, travelers that stopped moving but still face the light. When the wind carries dust across the desert floor, the sound changes depending on the size of the grains. Coarse sand hisses, fine sand hums. The audio team recorded these textures from real Nevada dunes. They said they wanted the air itself to speak, softly but clearly. It's the sound of erosion pretending to be music. If you stand still long enough at night, the stars above the Mojave appear to drift. The movement isn't real, it's caused by the earth turning beneath them. The developers built the illusion into the game's skybox, just slow enough for patience to notice. It's the kind of detail that rewards stillness. Fallout. New Vegas teaches you that not moving can be as meaningful as moving. The strip glows brighter the darker the desert becomes. It's the world's quiet contradiction. The less hope there is, the louder it shines. The light's color temperature shifts subtly each hour. In early evening, it burns warm yellow. By midnight, it cools to white. The city ages in reverse every night, from sunset to sunrise. The casinos of New Vegas each hum with their own tone. The Tops hums in low brass, Ultra Lux in distant piano, and Gomorrah in a slow heartbeat of drums. These sounds never overpower you, they blend into background rhythm. The strip becomes a living instrument civilization, humming quietly in defiance of silence. When you walk outside the city walls, the noise dies instantly. The quiet feels heavier than it should. The developers tuned the ambient sound fade to happen quickly, as though the desert swallows the strip's voice the moment you step away. The Mojave accepts sound only on its terms. If you travel north toward the mountains, the air begins to shimmer differently. Heat bends light into waves, turning the world ahead into mirage. The color of the sand fades from gold to pale gray, reflecting less Sunday. The world feels cooler, not because it is, but because you've reached a place the sun can't quite touch with the same cruelty. The companions who follow you breathe differently depending on the time of day. During heat, they exhale audibly. At night, their breath quiets. The team mix these sounds so softly that most players never notice them. They exist not to be heard, but to be felt proof that you're not alone, even when words fade. The Hoover Dam's turbines produce a low vibration that never stops. If you stand near them, the controller hums faintly in your hands. It's tactile storytelling, a world that speaks through touch. The Mojave communicates through vibration as much as through voice. Every chair and table in the casinos was placed to guide the eye. The angles of each surface lead toward the center of light, the bar, the dealer, the stage. It's manipulation by design, architecture as hypnosis. The strip's beauty isn't natural, it's curated illusion, comfort designed by people who never slept. When you enter Freeside, the lighting engine dims slightly. The world loses brightness by 10%, just enough to make you feel unease. The city looks alive, but tired, as though even light itself wants to rest. You can't see despair directly. You feel it in the temperature of color. At the edge of the Mojave, where cliffs meet the invisible border, the world turns soft blue at dusk. The haze there is thicker, and the horizon seems to melt. The developers called it the boundary of dreaming. It's where geography becomes memory. You can walk all the way to that blur and still feel like you're miles away. The ruins of vault structures hidden across the desert glow faintly under moonlight. Their metal reflects soft silver, not harsh brightness. It's light behaving like forgiveness. Even the worst mistakes in the Fallout world still shimmer gently when the night arrives. The abandoned airplanes near the airfield cast enormous shadows at sunrise. The team aligned the sun just right so that their silhouettes stretch like wings across the sand. The Mojave remembers flight, even when the sky has forgotten. When sandstorms sweep through, sound narrows. Everything outside a few feet disappears, replaced by a deep hum that feels almost alive. The audio fades to monophonic, imitating how hearing collapses during real storms. The player feels alone but safe inside that sound, wrapped in weather like a blanket. The color of your Pip-Boy screen reflects off walls when you open it in darkness. That soft green hue spreads faintly, illuminating your surroundings for a heartbeat. The feature was never meant to help you see. It was meant to remind you that even the smallest light touches everything nearby. The water in the Mojave shimmers differently depending on time of day. At dawn, ripples glow with orange light. By afternoon, they flatten and darken to gray. It's the same water, but the world teaches it new ways to reflect. If you rest at an outdoor camp, you can hear faint whispers of the desert's life, insects, wind, and the distant echo of unseen movement. The sound loops are designed to overlap irregularly, ensuring that nothing ever repeats the same way twice. The Mojave is chaos made peaceful. The ruins of the old monorail stations hold dust that drifts in perfectly still air. Those moats were coded to move slower than real life, a trick to make time feel heavy. It's as if gravity thickens near history. At night, if you walk close to Hoover Dam and look down into the water, you'll see faint reflections of red and gold from the strip's lights. They look like embers floating across darkness, civilization bleeding into nature. The river becomes memory's mirror, and when morning comes again, the Mojave doesn't rush to wake. The sun stretches upward, the wind sighs through canyons, and the world begins another slow day of remembering itself. Fallout. New Vegas is not a story about chaos. It's a lullaby for what remains after chaos ends the sound of the earth, learning how to breathe again. The Mojave doesn't ask questions, it just listens. Fallout, New Vegas was built like that, not to answer what happened, but to let the silence between answers mean something. Every canyon, every ruin, every windswept road holds space for stillness. The world has already spoken. Now it waits for you to hear it. When the player stands still long enough, the soundtrack fades completely. The only noise that remains is the hum of wind and the faint clicking of your Pip-Boy, a soft heartbeat in the background. It's a simple design decision, but one of the most powerful. It's the sound of existence reduced to essentials: breath, air, and memory. The color of sunrise over the Mojave changes with each passing day. Sometimes the light bends orange, other mornings pink, sometimes a thin line of gray before blue. This variation was accidental at first, caused by overlapping sky textures, but the developers decided to keep it. The desert, they said, should never wake up the same way twice. The clouds in Fallout New Vegas move slower than real clouds. Their animation speed is cut almost in half, stretching each drift into a meditative glide. The sky never feels rushed, even when the world below burns. The developers wanted the heavens to seem ancient, patient, a reminder that time doesn't belong to people. The rocks in the Mojave were sculpted by hand. Artists spent hours shaping each ridge, carving gentle curves instead of sharp lines, so light could rest on their surfaces naturally. The desert's geometry is built to catch sunlight, not to block it. Even stone, in this world, was made to be kind. If you follow the sound of crickets after dark, you'll notice that it fades near old machinery. The insects go quiet when standing near radiation or metal. The audio system switches loops automatically to simulate nature avoiding technology. The result is eerie, but poetic, a world that has learned caution from experience. The water near Hoover Dam carries faint reflection of moonlight, but not perfectly. The reflection trembles, shifting with invisible current. The team called this tired light, the illusion that even reflection can grow weary. It gives the sense that the river is remembering what it used to shine for. The strip's music fades slower than any other track in the game. When you walk away, the notes follow for several seconds, as if the city doesn't want to be forgotten. It's a small design touch that makes civilization feel clingy, unwilling to accept distance. Even in ruin, Las Vegas still wants attention. The sandstorms that sweep across the wasteland have layers. The top moves quickly, the bottom crawls. When you stand still, the world above you races, while the ground beneath drifts. The desert feels alive, not because it moves, but because it moves differently depending on where you stand. The sound of walking through shallow water carries three distinct layers: splash, echo, and after ripple. The physics engine combines these in real time, meaning every step sounds unique. You can't repeat a footstep in the Mojave, just like you can't repeat a moment. If you stare at the horizon during sunset, the colors blend without visible edges. The sky fades so gradually that your eyes can't tell where gold becomes red or red becomes purple. The transition is smoother than most games even attempt. It was a conscious choice to make endings gentle, not abrupt. Inside vaults, the air sounds thicker. The designers added a subtle, low frequency hum, like breathing through cloth. It creates claustrophobia without fear. The vaults don't feel evil, they feel tired. The air carries memory, as though every experiment left an echo behind. In the small towns of the Mojave, lamps flicker unevenly. Some buzz faintly, others hum like insects. The team recorded the sounds from old fluorescent tubes that had been burning for years. The goal was imperfection light that looks like it's trying to survive. The tumbleweeds follow a path algorithm that uses invisible wind maps. They move in wide loops, ensuring you never see one roll endlessly into a wall. Some even slow for a few seconds before speeding again. It's not physics, it's choreography. The Mojave is always dancing, even when it looks still. The radio announcer's voice was recorded through a vintage microphone. The slight distortion wasn't added digitally, it came from the equipment itself. That crackle is real. It makes the voice sound older than the world it speaks to, like a ghost broadcasting comfort. The plants that grow near water sources are a different shade of green than those near sand. The color difference is subtle but constant. The artists tinted the textures to simulate chlorophyll decay. It's nature's fatigue rendered in pixels. At night, the strip's neon casts a faint haze into the air. That haze moves slowly upward, dispersing by dawn. The illusion of light pollution makes the sky above the city dimmer than the one over the wasteland. Civilization, even dying, still hides its stars. The companions' idle animations were written to show personality without words. Some adjust their gear, others scan the horizon, others simply rest their hands. When they stop moving, they exhale softly, and that sigh plays quietly through the speakers. It's as if even the people of the Mojave have learned how to breathe with the land. The sound of wind over the radio towers was captured from real desert recordings. Each gust shifts pitch depending on the metal's thickness. The tones are close to musical keys, but not quite right notes that almost form a song but never finish. The Mojave hums half melodies. The geckos near water hiss when startled but coo softly when calm. Their sound files are layered with recordings of pigeons, frogs, and electrical static. It's biology and technology merged. Just like everything else in Fallout, nature rebuilt from scraps. In certain caves, dripping water echoes twice. The first echo is stone, the second is metal. Those reverberations were added intentionally to imply that human structures once extended deeper beneath the earth. The sound of civilization sleeps under miles of rock. The light in casinos never dims completely. Even when power should be off, faint glow remains. That's not oversight, it's symbolism. The world refuses true darkness, afraid of what silence might say if it ever got the chance. If you wait by campfire long enough, the embers fade into black, but the heat remains. The red glow disappears, yet the sound of crackling persists. It's faith in code form proof that warmth can exist without light. The color of the Mojave sky at noon carries hints of green. It's barely visible, but it's there. Radiation mixed into atmosphere, memory of decay hanging in air. The world doesn't hide its sickness, it makes it beautiful. The bridges that cross the dry riverbeds cast perfect shadows that match the rhythm of walking footsteps. The alignment was calculated by time of day, creating sync between light and motion. Every shadow steps beside you. When you stand on high cliffs, your footsteps echo faintly back. The sound engine calculates delay based on height, so even silence has distance. The desert reminds you how far your voice has to travel to be heard. And when all light fades, when even the strip's glow has gone quiet, and only the wind moves, the Mojave returns to its default state. Peace. Fallout. New Vegas isn't about power or conquest or chaos. It's about rest, a reminder that even the end of the world deserves time to breathe. The desert doesn't rebuild, it simply keeps going, quietly, endlessly, and somehow, beautifully. The Mojave never truly sleeps, it only exhales. Fallout. New Vegas was never built to feel alive in the way cities do. It was built to breathe the way deserts breathe, slowly, patiently, without need for witnesses. It's a world that understands that silence isn't empty. It's a kind of prayer. At dawn, the first light crawls gently across the sand. The shadows stretch long and soft, touching the edges of rusted cars and broken fences. The air smells like dust and copper. If you stand still, you can almost hear the heat waiting behind the horizon. The desert doesn't rush sunrise, it unfolds it like memory. The game's lighting engine was tuned for that moment. Every sunrise lasts slightly longer than the one before it, a quiet trick to make each morning feel unique, even if you never notice. The team said they wanted time to feel generous, as if the world itself wanted you to rest a little longer before moving again. When you walk into the wilderness with no quest, no compass, and no goal, the Mojave shows its true nature. It's not a world meant to guide, it's a world meant to wander. The paths curve without destination, and the light at the end of the road is never promise, only suggestion. Fallout. New Vegas isn't about arrival, it's about existing somewhere between departure and stillness. The rocks underfoot carry quiet metallic rings when you kick them. That sound isn't random. The audio team mixed the resonance of copper into the stone, a small nod to Nevada's mining history. The land itself remembers its purpose. The desert still hums with the industry of ghosts. The skeletons of pre-war billboards stand like tombstones along the horizon. Their slogans have peeled away, but the frames remain tall, defiant, unblinking. The sun turns their edges silver each morning. Even advertisements, once built to demand attention, now rest in peace. If you find a working radio, its static carries a low hum that moves in rhythm with the wind. The two sounds blend naturally. The developers once described it as noise-finding company. The Mojave makes music from coincidence. The road to Hoover Dam curves gently through canyons filled with echo. The sound of your footsteps repeats a half second later, like the land whispering your presence back to you. You never walk alone, even when you do. Fallout. New Vegas fills emptiness with reflection. The water below the dam shimmers with slow confidence. It moves without hurry, mirroring the sky's calm. That water has seen every ending. It has watched armies, ideologies, and empires fade into the same dust. It never stops moving because that's all it knows how to do. The Colorado is the Mojave's heartbeat, slow, deep, constant. The strip glows through night and into morning, its light reaching places it doesn't belong. You can see the reflection miles away, dancing faintly on the sides of mountains. Civilization refuses to die quietly. It sings its survival through neon and noise, even as the world has long since turned to quiet reflection. The casinos themselves breathe in mechanical rhythm, doors opening, slot machines buzzing, old lights humming. Every sound was built to feel tired. This is not the joy of victory, but the persistence of habit. The strip doesn't dream of prosperity, it dreams of repetition. The people of the Mojave speak softly. No one yells for long. Conversations begin and end in half whispers, carried by the air. The voice acting was recorded intentionally close to the microphone, giving each line a breath of warmth. The result is a world that talks like a lullaby. Even the creatures sound weary. The bark of a coyote at night echoes only once before silence returns. The insects hum without rhythm. The birds call sparingly. Their songs stretch thin. Life here has learned economy, no sound wasted, no movement without meaning. When storms roll in, the sky dims into brass colored gloom. Lightning flashes silently in the distance. The thunder doesn't follow right away. It lingers, as though the air is thinking before answering. The desert doesn't rage, it sighs. Fallout. New Vegas makes weather feel sentient emotion written in clouds. The light of your Pip-Boy, that faint green circle of safety, was never meant to be bright. It was meant to feel personal. The developers said they wanted it to resemble a candle cupped in your hands. It's the smallest flame in an endless dark proof that control still exists, even when hope feels small. Every town, every ruin, every bunker was placed with intention. None of the Mojave is random. The spaces between places are the point. The silence between stories is what makes it whole. Fallout. New Vegas isn't a world that fills your time. It gives it back to you, one quiet minute at a time. When you look at the horizon at night, you can almost see it pulse. The heat shimmer never fully disappears, even in darkness. The air remembers the sun too well to rest. It glows faintly, like breath on glass. That faint glow is the Mojave's final secret warmth that refuses to die even without fire. The companions that travel with you will sometimes hum softly when idle. The tunes aren't recognizable, and they never finish. The sound designers called them half songs, fragments of comfort surviving the apocalypse. People don't sing because they're happy here. They sing because silence is heavier. At night, if you watch from a distance, the windmills near Helios 1 spin like silhouettes against the stars. Their blades move without energy source, pushed only by nature. They don't power anything anymore. They just keep turning because that's what windmills do. They follow motion, not purpose. It's one of the quiet philosophies of Fallout New Vegas. Survival doesn't need reason, only rhythm. The canyons hum with echoes of their own. If you fire a single shot and listen carefully, you'll hear faint reverberations dance between cliffs. Each canyon has a unique voice, determined by its shape. The world quite literally answers you differently, depending on where you stand. Sound becomes dialogue, and silence becomes understanding. The sunset behind the Lucky 38 Tower paints its metal gold for a few brief seconds before the shadow takes it. The developers called this moment the Hour of Grace. It's the only time of day when the Mojave feels warm without burning. Even ruin deserves gentleness. And when the night finally comes, when the last gunfire fades, the radios go quiet, and the neon hums low like a lullaby, the Mojave exhales again. The wind moves through cracked windows, over quiet camps, across forgotten highways. Everything stills. Fallout, New Vegas was never meant to end in explosion or triumph. It was meant to end exactly like this, with peace found in persistence and beauty found in what refuses to disappear. The desert sleeps, the lights flicker, the stars remain, and somewhere, beneath all the dust and memory, the earth keeps humming softly, waiting for another traveler to listen. The Mojave isn't just a wasteland, it's a memory that refuses to fade. Fallout. New Vegas treats its world not as something broken, but as something still remembering how to exist. Every hill, every shadow, every echo holds a trace of intention, a quiet proof that life continues long after purpose disappears. It's not a story about rebuilding, it's a story about remembering how to breathe. In the earliest hours of morning, the desert hums in tones that seem almost human. The insects buzz in one rhythm, the wind in another, and together they make something close to song. The sound designers called it accidental harmony. It's the Mojave's music not composed, not planned, just existing because silence doesn't know how to last forever. The city lights of New Vegas don't flicker randomly. Each sign has its own heartbeat, its own rhythm. Some pulse quickly, others fade slowly, and together they create a living pulse, a mechanical constellation on the horizon. Even after the bombs, humanity still imitates stars. The Lucky 38 tower emits a faint electrical hum that deepens after midnight. That detail came from a real field recording of old power plants where generators slow during off hours. The developers wanted the sound of progress, growing tired technology, breathing like an exhausted animal. The Hoover Dam, carved between stone and memory, was textured by hand to exaggerate erosion. The team wanted it to look like history was eating at the concrete, not nature. It's not decay for decay's sake, it's the visible weight of time. The Mojave doesn't forget what people built, it simply waits long enough to make them smaller. In the ruins of the pre war suburbs, children's toys rest on the floors of collapsed houses. A ball, a small car, a plastic dinosaur frozen mid play. These details are easy to overlook, but they exist for one reason: stillness. Fallout. New Vegas doesn't show the moment the world ended, it shows how the moment never left. If you walk through Freeside at dawn, the shadows of its broken walls stretch across the street, connecting one ruin to another. For a few minutes each day, the light ties the city together again. It's not repair, it's memory pretending to heal. The old monorail still loops around the strip in quiet rhythm. The screech of its wheels and the hum of its motor echo faintly into the night. The developers said they wanted the city to have a pulse that never learned how to die. The monorail doesn't move for passengers anymore. It moves because the world still believes in movement. The sand that drifts across the highways was coated with subtle randomness. Each storm rearranges it slightly, meaning no two dunes are ever identical. It's the smallest detail of impermanence proof that even the end of the world has weather. The skybox above the Mojave was painted with more stars than any other Fallout game. Over 300,000 tiny points of light, each one placed to reflect a real constellation. The developers said they wanted the sky to remind players of everything that didn't end when the world did. The stars don't mourn, they just keep shining. The windmills near Helios 1 creak in uneven rhythm. No two turn at the same speed, creating the illusion of exhaustion. The sound isn't mechanical, it's emotional. The Mojave has always understood that survival doesn't sound clean. It rattles, it scrapes, it keeps going. The tumbleweeds that roll across the open plains follow the same invisible wind patterns that shape the clouds above. The sky and the ground are choreographed together. Fallout. New Vegas is a dance between air and earth, performed for no audience but time. The sound of thunder during storms is deeper in the Mojave than anywhere else in Fallout. The low frequencies were layered to feel closer to your chest than your ears. When lightning strikes, it doesn't frighten, it resonates. The earth reminds you it's still awake. The Strip's casinos each have unique smells simulated through sound. Soft hisses and faint clinks create the illusion of perfume, alcohol, and smoke. The sensory layering tricks the brain into imagining scent. It's nostalgia disguised as acoustics. When you rest in a bed anywhere in the Mojave, the world doesn't freeze. Outside, wind continues to move, water still ripples, fires still flicker. The land dreams along with you. Fallout. New Vegas is one of the few games where rest feels mutual. The world sleeps because you do. If you walk along the river at twilight, the reflections of broken bridges stretch across the surface like fingers reaching for something long gone. The ripples break them apart slowly, piece by piece, as though even memory has limits. The river teaches, forgetting the way, the desert teaches patience. The radio signal from Mr. New Vegas was recorded as though played through 3 layers of static, filtered through an analog compressor to mimic real long distance transmission. The result sounds warmer, older, and strangely comforting. It's the voice of a world that refuses to let loneliness win. The abandoned drive in theaters across the Mojave still face their blank screens. The seats have long since rusted away, but the projectors remain. The developers made sure the reels never move, not even when interacted with. Cinema, once a symbol of imagination, now sits perfectly still. The Mojave doesn't need new stories. It's content, rewatching the old ones. The color of the desert changes most dramatically after storms. Wet sand deepens to reddish brown, stones shimmer faintly, and sunlight bends around the moisture in the air. That effect lasts only a few minutes, a brief illusion of renewal before dryness returns. The Mojave teaches impermanence the way a teacher repeats a lesson, gently, endlessly, until understanding becomes acceptance. And as night falls once more, the desert takes on its truest form, quiet, vast, and honest. The stars appear without effort. The wind hums its endless song, and the strip glows far in the distance, pretending to still matter. But out here, away from the noise, there's peace. Fallout. New Vegas ends where it began, in the hum of air, the echo of your own steps, and the feeling that somewhere beneath all this dust, the world is still trying to dream. The Mojave doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't demand purpose. It only offers quiet. And if you listen long enough, it becomes clear that silence isn't the absence of life. It's proof that life continues, patiently, beautifully, without needing to be seen. That's the heart of Fallout New Vegas. It's not a world about endings, it's a world about endurance, the soft miracle of still being here.